Welcome to the assignment. You have here an outline of the overall task. On the left here we have the specification, here we have the assessment, and here we have how you should write it up. You need to follow these guidelines precisely. If you start to submit something that you call a dissertation and do your usual thing, you will lose marks. If you're asked to do something in business, it's important that you do what you are asked to do. So this is an important discipline. On the left here, we have a summary of the task. I've not included the full wording of the options. Basically, you're asked to choose one of these three tasks and produce a report of 1,500 words that responds to the requirement in each option. You must submit, as it says here in the general notes, you must submit one Word file and you must include the full title to the option. That makes it clear to me at least, and to yourself, or almost well, more importantly, as to the exact requirements of the task. The second point here is that you are required to base your answer on material delivered on the course. If you go off into reference land, and some submissions seem to make a point of not using anything delivered on the course, if you do that, you're going to end up with a broken, disorientated piece of work that is confused and that basically doesn't conform to the marking guidelines, which I'll talk about in a moment. But your slides and the delivery of the course presents a clear, joined up pathway through the subject, and it is that pathway which, if you pick it up and apply it in the way that you're asked to do, if you do that, then that is going to get you high marks. So please don't cut and paste your way through the exercise. I've said you must submit on one Word file here. For the sake of readability, don't use appendices. They're not read, right? So don't use them. If you've got a lot of data to report, and well, we'll talk about that later. References are not required for this exercise. They're not required as a response to the option, as I think I say somewhere else. The option here starts with the managing director of XYZ, ABC Limited and DEF. These are reports in a business context. They are not reports in an academic context. So you're not trying to write an academic paper. You are trying to write a business report to businessmen. Okay, so there's a few notes on the general task. Marking guidelines here. Just explain the marking here. Data originality, I've left as an option that you use the actual analysis that I'm going to show you in each of the options. If you are absolutely stuck, then you can use that analysis as the basis of your answer. But you will get marks if you use, say, another country. That would be the simplest one. Basically, there are three countries quoted. Just some change to the figures so that the figures are different, and that scores on data originality. It is out of 10. You know, it might not be the full 10 if you've just chosen a sub-period of the data given. Might be a few marks knocked off that. But basically, if your numbers are different from the analysis here. However, if you are finding the analysis very difficult, then it is possibly best to stick to the analysis here and concentrate on the other aspects. The general layout consists of marks given for something that is The graphs are clear, they've got proper titles to them, you've given the source, you've just presented tables that are clear, that are not overly long, and so on and so forth. So if you write something that actually has the reader in mind and made something that's readable, that's logical, has a clear pathway, then that's all part of the general layout. And then finally, the greater part is, of course, for the content. And to elaborate on that, the general overall descriptors here, which I won't go through, they're very well written. I didn't write them, but they are very good. And so have a look, and that gives you some idea as to the quality that is being sought in each of the marking bands. Okay, so on the right here, this third one, I've talked about the format, and that is exactly how you should present your report. I would encourage you to use these actual titles. It's being original and doing it differently isn't going to get you any marks. So in this respect, do take the simple route. I've made notes as to what is required here, and essentially you must remember that these things are a piece of communication. Your ability to communicate the ideas is very important, and frankly, the better you understand the concepts, the easier it is for you to communicate. I'm sure if I was to ask you to write clearly about how to cross the road, you'd write a beautiful piece. So, things that we're familiar with, that we understand, we can write about in a clear, concise manner. And that is the task that is in front of you. So the word limit of 1500 you should take as being an important restriction. If you're going over 1500, then the quality of what you're writing is probably deficient in some respect. Maybe a sentence doesn't have to be said. Maybe it's just elaborating, right? So you should hit the word count quite easily. So there's no need to start padding out, just saying things that aren't necessary. You're communicating to businessmen who are not going to be familiar with the concepts and theories, but you don't need to give long-winded explanations of them. I mean, one, as we saw over here, one of them is on efficient markets hypothesis, right? A brief explanation, one sentence, two sentences on that. PPP test, again, something very brief. And Marshall Lerner tests. So again, something very brief. Don't be afraid of using simple equations, which are going to be necessary for some of them. So don't be afraid of that. Businessmen aren't stupid, but they don't want to get long-winded academic explanations with references. So they don't want that. They want something that's clear and something that explains everything. Right, so the final point here is that we are interested in you developing your own voice, your own confidence. You don't need to go to other sources to provide a good explanation. You can do it yourself. And the final point is remember to use the slides. That is what they're there for. That is what we expect you to use in fulfilling this assignment. Okay, that's it.